We are now back in formal session.
Representative Mr. Douglas Vincent, and the 24th Benilde Model United Nations Director General Elijah Aaron Mercado. Applause is in order. The body will now resume with the speakers list. If you wish to be part of the speakers list, kindly use the raise hand function to be recognized. Seeing that there are none, the days would compel delegates to be in the speakers list. Delegate of Seychelles, Delegate of Philippines, Delegate of Saudi Arabia, Delegate of Portugal, and Delegate of Yemen. Thank you, delegates. Delegate of South Africa, Delegate of Singapore, you may now have the floor.
Greetings. The delegate of Singapore would like to speak about overconsumption and overproduction. So, we strongly advocate for a circular economy wherein the value of resources is maximized by keeping them in use for as long as they are feasible. As the smallest nation in terms of surface area in the Southeast Asia, land is scarce and resources are limited in Singapore. So, for the country to maintain a safe living environment without compromising the high quality of life for the present and future generations, Singapore aims to become a zero waste nation wherein we repair instead of buying, and in attaining a circular economy, measures must be taken across the entire life cycle of a product. So, from its production, consumption, up until its waste and resource management. Uh, I would like to yield my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Singapore. Suspension of parliamentary procedures. Delegates, kindly make sure to keep your cameras open at all times. This is a reminder from our protocol. And also another reminder, please acknowledge the messages of the protocol. If not, you will be given another violation. So for every message of the protocol, you have to acknowledge it for it to be recognized. We are now back in formal session.
Delegate of Seychelles, you may now have the floor.
The Republic of Seychelles firmly believes that there is a significant food carbon footprint on the amount of food consumed. Therefore, excessive consumption and production align with our definition of green crime, which is defined as activity that substantially harm natural systems in order for capital accumulation. As various publications have observed over the last decade, the effects of climate change transcend international borders as well as degrees of privilege and money. Seychelles, as a small island nation in the Indian Ocean, is heavily dependent on imported food products. The tourism establishments are becoming more aware of how the food waste can be detrimental to the environment and a cost burden. Hotels take actions to reduce based on recommendations brought forward by the staff and the trainer or auditor. So far, simple actions such as reduction in portion size has resulted to reduction at least 10 kilograms in plate leftover per week. Dishes that were left unnoticed in buffet had to go, and bread is now given on demand rather than served immediately to guests, to name a few of the measures in place. The aggregated impact of the program can decrease unsustainable consumption and production, cut down demand on imported products, while allowing our local farmers to thrive as more value is given to local produce and good food could be diverted from landfill through a distribution while others can be composted. This delegate yields back the time to the
Thank you, Delegate of Seychelles. Delegate of the Philippines, you may now have the floor.
Carl Sagan once said, "Preserve and cherish the only home we've ever known." Honorable chairs and fellow delegates, the Republic of the Philippines is a developing country that has been suffering from overconsumption and overproduction for years, not only from an environmental view, but also from an economical one, with the price of onions soaring, hundreds, if not thousands, of kilograms of cabbages being wasted in some areas of the country. The elephant in the room is getting out of hand. And that is why the delegate of the Republic of the Philippines calls the other countries to not only look upon the topic, but also to create solutions for it. Thank you, and I would like to yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Philippines. Delegate of Saudi Arabia, you may now have the floor.
Greetings, esteemed chairs and my fellow delegates. Saudi Arabia has always been known as the world's largest oil exporter, but recently an overproduction on oil is happening as the increase increase in oil production is happening, and this results to the increasing um, emissions of increase of oil emissions and overproduction, which results to a huge environmental effect not only on the world but most specifically in our country, Saudi Arabia. Um, this oil overproduction caused pollution not only in the um, production but also to the agriculture, the which greatly affect the environmental effect and pollution risk. And this pollution damages in a variety of ways. Thus, it affects all and specifically the environment. So why not give more attention in mitigating the overconsumption and overproduction, which not only benefit the health of all but also a huge effect on the climate change. And I yield my time back to Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Saudi Arabia. The days would smile upon a motion to set the agenda. Delegates, you may only motion to set the agenda to 2-1 as the default is 1-2. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Okay, suspension of parliamentary procedures. Okay, so for setting the agenda, so for this part is our default is 2-1. So you may only motion to set the agenda to prioritize the second agenda first. Prioritize the second agenda and then the first agenda. So when you say your motion, so this delegate would like to motion to set the agenda to 2-1 because the default is already 1-2. So if no one motions, then we will automatically push through with the first agenda and then the second agenda. I hope that's clear with the delegates. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we are now back in formal session. So the days would smile upon a motion to set the agenda. Delegates, you may only motion to set the agenda to 2-1 as the default is 1-2. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Delegate of the Philippines, you are recognized.
The delegate would like to use the motion to set the agenda to 2-1.
That is in order, delegate. We will now vote upon the agenda motion by the delegate of the Philippines. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function. Seeing an overwhelming majority, this motion clearly passes. The agenda is now set to 2-1. The General Assembly will be first tackling the mitigating overconsumption and overproduction and its environmental effects, followed by safeguarding the LDC's democratic institutions amidst the rising trend of cyber warfare. So the speaker's list will now be exhausted in order for the body to discuss the current agenda. And any delegate who wishes to be part of the speaker's list, please use the raise hand function. Suspension of parliamentary procedures. Sorry, delegate of Thailand, you will receive again later. So common mistake of delegates is they still push through with their intro speech. So after the agenda has been set, the speech that you should be delivering is the agenda we are now tackling. So make sure that when you say your speech, the topic that you are discussing is about the mitigating overconsumption and overproduction and its environmental effects and no longer the stance of your country. So you can say the stance of your country about this agenda, but not the first agenda. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So we will now resume. The We are now in formal session. The speakers list will now be exhausted in order for the body to discuss the current agenda. Any delegate who wish to be part of the speakers list, please use the raise hand function. Delegate of Thailand, you are recognized. Delegate of the Philippines, you are recognized. Delegate of Bangladesh. Delegate of Switzerland. The delegate of the Solomon Islands. The delegate of Haiti. And the delegate of Gambia. Delegate of Belgium, you're also recognized. Thank you. So first we have the delegate of Thailand. You may now have the floor.
Thank you. Luckily, Thailand's foreign policy and pillars of national interest can accommodate both agendas. So defending Agenda 2 won't at all be that difficult because much like the Philippines, Lao PDR and Bhutan, Thailand is a country rich in natural resources, which have played a significant role as well in supporting local livelihoods and driving the economic growth of Thailand. You see, forests, watersheds, marine environments, and mineral resources have all been instrumental in supporting the Thai manufacturing, export, and tourism industries. However, rapid economic development over the past several decades have occurred through the unsustainable exploitation of these natural resources. And economic priorities have often taken precedence over conservation in many cases. Now, Thailand faces increasing environmental degradation in many regions, including the loss of biodiversity and declining wildlife populations, deforestations, and the like. And I'm sure that Thailand is not alone in seeing the world as we know now fall consistently into an increasing state of decay. Delegates, it is an indubitable truth that our lives, the lives of our family, our women, our children, are worth saving. But we can't do that if the very earth, that of which we depend our lives on, its flora and fauna, is dying. So the delegate of Thailand would like to agree that it was a good idea to push for Agenda 2. And with that said, I would like to yield my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Thailand. Now we have the delegate of the Philippines. You may now have the floor.
Honorable chairs and fellow delegates. As mentioned earlier, this has been an issue in the country for years. This is why the delegate wants to create solutions wherein the two and climate change will be resolved at the same time. For overproduction, better supply control, and for overconsumption, controlling the amount of products a consumer can buy, similar to what the government did when the demand for alcohol was soaring. As per climate change, creating decrees similar to PD 1153, wherein every citizen has to plant a tree every month for 5 consecutive years. The Philippines is willing to do as many solutions as possible to resolve these problems. Thank you, and the delegate would like to yield his time back to the chair.
Thank you, delegate of the Philippines. Next, we have the delegate of Bangladesh. You may now have the floor.
Fortunately, mitigation of overconsumption and overproduction in Bangladesh have already been present ever since the year 2012. The Climate and Clean Air Coalition, or CCAC, which began to reduce the black carbon emissions in the improvement of the environment. Initiatives such as brick links, which are one of the largest carbon emissions generators in Bangladesh. Agricultural Initiative, which works to reduce the greenhouse emissions of rice production. And Hydrofluoric Carbon Initiative to develop an inventory to lead a more climate-friendly appliances. Similar movements and programs could reduce the black carbon emission by 72% in the year 2040. By reducing the number by that much, we can help those who are suffering from the overconsumption and overproduction. Sustainable Agriculture Incentivizations (SAI) can help practice current and future food security needs while decreasing the environmental impacts. The delegate of the delegate of Bangladesh now yields its time back to the chair.
Thank you, delegate of Bangladesh. Now the day is recommended the delegate motions for a 5-minute unmoderated caucus. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Again, delegate of Switzerland, you are recognized.
The delegate of Switzerland will have a motion for an unmoderated caucus for 5 minutes.
That is in order, delegate. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will now vote upon the motion set by the delegate of Switzerland to move the body for a 5-minute unmoderated caucus. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function. See an overwhelming majority. This motion clearly passes. We are now in a 5-minute unmoderated caucus. Delegates, again, please be reminded to check your chat box for instructions from your staff, protocol, and logistics officers. Also, kindly use this time to find your working blocks, and if you can, start working on your working papers. Thank you.
The body will now resume the speakers list.
Now we have the delegate of Solomon Islands. You are recognized.
With over 85% of the population employed in primary goods manufacturing, sustainable environmental management is closely linked to economic development, social progress, and poverty reduction. The ecosystem and natural resources of the Solomon Islands are under severe threat. For instance, invasive species, the loss of important terrestrial and marine ecosystems, exploitation of natural resources, harmful harvesting methods, global temperature, sea level rise, and increase in the frequency of catastrophic climatic occurrences. Natural environmental analysis is a technique implemented by the Asian Development Bank to assist developing member states in including environmental considerations in country cooperation programs. The country's environmental analysis provides targeted information needed for informed decision-making on environmental constraints, needs, and opportunities, particularly those influencing poverty partnership agreements. The emphasis is on adding value to existing and planned development activities by lowering environmental constraints, capitalizing on environmental opportunities, and stimulating measures that can result in a greater mainstreaming of ecological issues into national economic advancement and strategic planning. This delegate would like to yield its time to the chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Solomon Islands. Delegate of Haiti, you may now have the floor.
The Republic of Haiti defines overproduction as the production of goods that exceeds the demand by consumers, and overconsumption as what occurs when an ecosystem can no longer sustain the utilization of its resources. With Haiti being one of the largest producers of beverages, butter, cement, detergents, edible oils, flour, refined sugar, soap, and textiles, overproduction and overconsumption have been an exceptional problem for Haiti, mainly because overproduction and overconsumption drain all the resources and contribute to already high levels of pollution and poisonous gases, which intensifies the global warming. Furthermore, a recent study has found that Haiti might have some of the largest oil reserves in the world, and if these issues are not resolved, it may lead to much worse state of the country. Foreign intervention and debt, political instability, and natural resources have stymied the Caribbean countries' development. In fact, Haiti's farmers fight against the catastrophic effects of climate change. Thus, the delegate of Haiti persuades the whole nation and other countries to use energies such as electricity efficiently and open the ways for renewable energies to avoid the depletion of the natural resources. This delegate would like to yield the remaining time back to the chair. Thank you.
Suspension of parliamentary procedures, recognizing the presence of the 24th Benilde Model United Nations, the Deputy Chief of Staff, Rainiel Grimaldo. Applause is in order. We are now back in formal session. The days would stand upon the motion to suspend the meeting until 11:10. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Delegate of Egypt, you are recognized.
Motion to suspend the meeting until 11:10.
Suspension of parliamentary procedures. Delegate, when you motion, make sure to say either your country or this delegate would like to motion at the beginning of your sentence. Okay, we are now back in formal session. Again, delegate of Egypt, you're recognized.
The delegate of Egypt would like to motion to suspend the meeting until 11:10 a.m.
That is in order, delegate. We will now vote upon the motion set by the delegate of Egypt to suspend the meeting until 11:10. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function to be recognized. Seeing an overwhelming majority, this motion clearly passes. The General Assembly will reconvene at 11:10 a.m. Delegates may turn off their cameras and be back by 11:10 in the afternoon. On behalf of the General Assembly Committee, we would like to thank you for your first substantive committee sessions. We will be seeing each other later in the same Zoom coordinates. Have a nice break.